Hello and welcome back to another video log from a post-fight event with me, Shane Saunders from the Riding Irish. And I kind of did something a bit different this week. I decided to do a recap on Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender series, which is always a bit of a mouthful to say, but it was episode 3 last night. Usually I do a write-up on the site. I haven't had a chance to do it this week. It's just been crazy busy in my actual full-time job, and straight off the bat, if I appear really warm, if I appear a bit kind of sweaty, a bit red, it's because there's a huge heat wave happening right now, sweeping across Ireland, and it's been beautiful. But my God, it's been absolutely torturous at times, kind of recording bits and pieces, because obviously you want to get the external sound from outside. You have to close all the windows, so try and make this as brief as possible because I'm absolutely roasting just sitting in this room. But like I say, Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender series is in full swing at the moment. We've had 3 episodes so far with 15 fights and 30 hopeful combatants really just trying to get their way into the UFC by impressing the head honcho Dana White, as they keep saying in the broadcast. But look, I have nothing against the Ultimate I have nothing against Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender series. I think it's actually better than the Ultimate Fighter. The Ultimate Fighter, I think, has just grown completely stale. I haven't sat down to watch an episode or a series in years now at this stage. I just find the format completely it's not in keeping with the times, I think, because Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender series is so much better because you have these fighters who are in training camps specifically for these fights. No exhibition fights. It's great. It's a really good system. It's a really good format. The pacing is nice. It's a great way to get into the UFC, I think. But that being said, it kind of comes with a weird kind of style thing that you have to impress Dana White to get in. And look, we all know Dana's type of fight. He loves a good brawl. He loves a finish. He loves, he doesn't like boring fights, etc. And to be fair, he's kind of gotten what he's wanted so far. He's out of the 15 fights, 14 have gone, only one has gone the distance. So that's 14 finishes out of 15, which is really good. I mean, it's a great return on what you're expecting so far. And it's just a weird kind of, from episode 1 to episode 3, we've kind of seen a weird kind of turn in Dana's progression as to how he gives out, his thought process as how he gives out UFC contracts. I mean, the first I think he gave out 2. He gave out 4 last week, which is a record, I believe, for the show. And then last night's episode, he gave out 3. And it's good, I think, for the fighters who are maybe later on in the card who might be in competition to try and get the fastest finish of the night, which is not something that you should really be expected of, because while it is great to impress and while it's great to hone all your skills, whether it be on the ground or whether it be on the feet, finishing someone is always a good statement to make, especially if you're in, this type of show or if you're on a title run. It's always good to get style points, get new fans on board, and get the top brass talking about you. They want to put you in bigger and bigger fights. But for this, it's a really strange one because it just seems like fighters are kind of almost losing the run on themselves, and it seems that they're too eager and they're getting caught and they're getting clipped, and when they probably wouldn't necessarily do that. It's a bit of a shame, but I do think that the format is really good. I do really enjoy the process, and I've enjoyed the fights from what I've seen, and last night was no different. So I guess we go from top to bottom, and I have the entire sheet here of my little scribbles and notes, I guess. So the first fight on the night was Jordan Williams against why is his name failing me? Tim Curran. And that was an interesting fight in terms of just how short notice that Williams had to come into the fight on. I think he came in on 5 days' notice, I think the broadcast team said. And he did well. I mean, his performance would be brilliant for a UFC debutant coming on short notice. Someone coming in, replacing a fighter, getting a TKO finish in round 3 would be great on paper. But it's not how it really played out. It was a very strange kind of fight. More so for Tim Curran, who was just on his back for almost 15 minutes of the fight. And strangely enough, the broadcast team kept emphasising the point that Curran's back game, or his wrestling off his back, or his defence off his back, just non-existent. And it kind of begs the question as to how he got in on the show in the first place. Who was watching him, and why was he just put in here? it was just really odd. It was a really bad fight for Karen. It was a great fight for Williams. I really enjoyed his performance. He did what he had to. When you're coming on a fight on such short notice, you gotta do what's best for you. It's great in training camp when you're, honing new skills, you're boxing or you're doing everything else in between. But his basics are obviously wrestling, and that's what he did. He out wrestled Caron. He got him down to the ground. He laid on him on the mat. He was chopping away with elbows. He was chopping away at body shots, and it was a lovely performance. I thought it was a really nice performance. I think it was very unfair that he didn't even get a contract or even a mention at the very end. He came in. I know it wasn't exactly a flashy finish. He got stopped by a couple of elbows in late in the third round. I don't have an issue with the stoppage. I think it was kind of a confusing kind of stoppage for many. It feels like that Karen was still in the fight, but he just gave up. His will wasn't there. His heart wasn't in it. He wanted to be anywhere else. A bit like Aranches at the weekend when he was fighting Song Yudong at UFC Singapore. He just didn't want to be anywhere. He didn't have the wherewithal to even throw in an underhook. The advice from his corner was awful all the way through, essentially saying, get up. I mean, you have to give your fighter a bit of encouragement and give him some instructions as to how to get up. Like, do you say move your body to the right, get an underhook in, post and get up? He was getting none of that, and it was a really bad performance from Karen. He'd be very disappointed with himself in that. A lot to learn for him if he's going to continue on in this profession. I mean, Williams was good. I enjoyed his fight. I feel bad for the guy that he didn't even get a contract. But that's what that's what it is, I'm afraid. And, sometimes you might catch Dana on a good night, and you might catch him on a night like that when he just doesn't even get a look in and say, look, fair play. Took the fight on 4 or 5 days' notice, came in, did what he got to do, got a TKO win. I mean, I don't know really what else you're really supposed to do in that, unless you're going to take the guy's head off clean in like 10 seconds in. I mean, you don't get to know much about a fighter really in 10 seconds. So, it's one of those things, I guess. As the night went on, Julian Erosa, who was actually in the UFC before, he went on to beat Jamal Emmers. God, I can't even pronounce any names anymore. One of those days, all the heat is getting to my brain. But Erosa, anyway, it was a wild fight. And I mean wild, there was back and forth exchanges, but I don't mean wild in the, oh my god, this is the most amazing back and forth brawl I've ever seen in my life. It was wild in terms of, oh my god, it just looks like these guys are out there just coming in, picked off the street to wing shots at each other. It was crazy. It was just mad. Both fighters, hands down, both coming at each other, throwing everything, and it was just ridiculous stuff, really. It didn't look great. It was an interesting one. Just, for a pure visual aesthetic, I mean, for casual fans, it'd probably think, oh my god, this is amazing. But when you've kind of fine-tuned your viewing experience of the UFC and mixed martial arts in general, it was a really kind of, this is kind of ugly. Like, not to say that it wasn't entertaining, we got a finish out of it. I mean, Erosa dropped Emmers big and followed up with some nice punches on the ground. He dropped him with a nice clean right hook. Sorry, it was a head kick he landed. Sorry, he finished off with a right hand on the ground. But it was a nice head kick that he landed. And I mean, that for me would be a fight that Dana kind of likes. But he didn't even get a contract. Now, he got a good mention and said that, look, if ever a guy drops out of a fight on a short notice replacement, Erosa will be the guy. Now, Erosa's already fought in the UFC. He's fought in the Ultimate Fighter and fought once in the UFC itself. A record of 1-1, then got cut for whatever reason. But he just seemed to kind of try to make a statement of trying to be too over elaborate with what he was trying to do. It was almost like, again, a bit like, it's just mad. It was just very strange. I couldn't really comprehend the performance. He got the finish, and it looked good for his record, but it was just one of those type of fights. I mean, for the casual fan, they'd be excited to see him. I don't know. I'd like to see him kind of maybe just go back to what his basics, just really just clean, crisp boxing, because it's there. Lovely skills, great, stylistic kind of kicks and everything that he's got. but just absolutely just getting caught with the most basic of errors. Stepping into punching range and staying in the pocket and getting nailed left right. It's not a good look, and I understand you're trying to make a statement, you're trying to be involved in an exciting fight, but not at the risk of getting knocked out yourself. It's just not worth it in that type of format. Even though he is the quickest way into the UFC, but Arosa said they say that he's in a good place in terms of being able to possibly come in short notice, take a fight in the UFC, and who knows, see where it goes from there. And given the rate that fighters drop out in the UFC, there's no telling when he'll be in. He could be in maybe 1 month, 2 months, a year. Who knows? You never know. As for the third fight of the night, the only heavyweight action on the fight was Josh Parisian against Greg Rebello. Now, Greg Rebello was also in the UFC before. Seems to be kind of like a redemption story. It was just a bit kind of overplayed, kind of redemption story. As for Parisian, he's come in on 4 days' notice. Said that he got a call from the matchmakers and from an unknown number, accepted the fight, and there he was. And to be honest with you, while it lasted, it was a really good performance. And the heavyweights in the UFC, the heavyweight division in the UFC, it's crying out for new talent to come into it, because it's bit of a stale division right now. And I'm not saying Parisian will be it, but he offers something different. Now, he came out nicely with some really nice spinning back kicks, and he was looking for them early, and he didn't land the first couple, but he kept going back to the well, and he tried it again, and he tried it again, and he eventually caught Rebello right in the kidney with it, which looked like it winced him slightly, and so it got Rebello thinking about kind of protecting the body a bit, and it was actually a really smart IQ, good fight IQ from Parisian, who then attempted another spinning attack, and when Rebello thought he was going low, he came up high with a spinning back elbow and just dropped him, and it was vicious. It was a clean knockout. It was really nice, and I'm glad that he got a contract. It was obviously going to come. I think he was going to get the contract, but it's kind of coming with a caveat, I think, because Dana White said he might be put into the Ultimate Fighter. I'm not really sure how that's going to work. Now, we said the same about Greg Hardy a couple of weeks ago, that Greg Hardy would also be put in a kind of academy, if you will, like a step into the UFC. But I'm not sure what they're planning. I don't know if they're going to just put them both in the Ultimate Fighter and the heavyweights and just kind of build them up, get them, like, pad out their record a bit. I haven't a clue. But Parisian, I liked what I saw. I don't think it'd be any harm for him to go into the UFC. His record's not that bad. I think he's 5-1 maybe now. I don't think it'd be too bad to have him in the UFC, even just as a, just get the experience with him. I know he's 28, but I mean, I'm not. Is the Ultimate Fighter the way to go? I don't know. I mean, if it's a Contender series, surely they've earned it already. Having seen the tape, being called up. I don't know. It's a weird one, but I'm glad that he's caught the eye. He's got that A contract, whatever it is. I haven't a clue. But it was a really nice performance, and if you haven't seen it yet, I highly recommend you go back and watch it. It was really nice. Also, another nice performance and another really good knockout was T. Edwards against Austin Tweedy. And, I mean, for a really light guy, I mean, T. Edwards has some vicious power in that right hand. It was really beautiful, crisp boxing. The way he entered into the cage, he was nice and relaxed. He was calm. His head movement was on point. He was on the ball of his feet. He was light. Tweedy, likewise as well, was kind of jumping back in and out, kind of both feeling each other out. But Edwards then just, whatever way that he kind of ducked his body and came over the top with a big vicious right hook, he caught Austin Tweedy clean with, I'm talking proper clean. Now, at the time, in real time. So what happened was, once Edwards connected with Edwards, with Tweedy, my apologies, he dropped, and Edwards walked away. And for a minute, I was thinking, he's not out. Tweedy's still in the fight. You need to jump back on him, because he's going to recover. But the referee was kind of hesitant as well, but he called off the fight in, I think, what was it, 28 seconds. And I was thinking that's a very, very odd stoppage. But in the replays, it did show from an overhead angle that Tweedy's eyes were out. He was in the back of his head and he was out. And it was a clean right hook. It just dropped him, eyes roll back. Like, if there's any way to make a statement in that show, it's that. Clean walk off knockout in 28 seconds. You're not going to get much better than that. I mean, I don't how far Edwards can go in the division, in I think, lightweight division. It's hard to know. He seems like, but the thing is though, he seems like a very humble guy, and he was kind of saying, look, if you're going to give me a free shot, if you're not going to move your head, people, I just happen to have heavy power, but like knockouts aren't really my forte. So it's kind of nice that we're getting like kind of that kind of angle of him as well, and it's the future's bright for him for sure. Absolutely, he's still a young guy, and that will certainly earn him a lot of fans. And you know, it'll be nice to see him now, kind of with a bigger test, just to see more of his skills. But I mean, you can't ask for cleaner and better than that. I mean, it was really good performance, and he should be proud of himself, really. And I look forward to seeing him again anyway, because 28 seconds, it's not much to judge a fighter on, but what I saw, I liked his entry into the pocket, the way he was able to duck under, duck his head, and just land clean. It was really nice. 28 seconds. You'll find it on Twitter. You'll find it somewhere, I'm sure. Give it a watch and have a look. It was really beautiful. And as for the evening's, I guess main event, main feature, main fight of the night was Antonina Shevchenko. I'm glad I didn't butcher her name, because I was thinking I was going to. And she was fighting Jamie Nivera in a really. It was lopsided. It was just a very lopsided fight. Shevchenko is only 5-0 in MMA. She's undefeated. Her sister Valentina is already in the UFC in the flyweight division, who is pulling up trees and is obviously the number one contender right now. But Nivera she was overawed completely. She was just out of her depth. It was kind of messy. Her fight IQ wasn't the greatest. She got caught in the clinch a lot. Now Shevchenko's clinch game was just beautiful. It was lovely technique, but it was vicious. She was dragging her head down and she was kneeing all the time, rather than look up to the ceiling. I mean, Nivera was face to the floor, just getting nailed repeatedly, and ended up getting a big nasty cut over her left eye. The doctor was kind of in having a look at it. Now, it wasn't trickling into her eye, but did look like it was kind of causing her a bit of discomfort. But it wasn't pretty. The aesthetic, anyway, of the eye wasn't pretty, but the actual fight itself wasn't pretty either. You could see that Nivera was dying to take her down. She was shot in straight away for a single leg. Couldn't even clasp the hands together. Shevchenko was able to grab her, tie her up, knee, elbow, and that's how the fight ended. Shevchenko on top, Nivera on the bottom, and incidentally, it was actually Shevchenko's first finish in MMA, and she got a contract too, which means that the two Shevchenko sisters now are in the UFC. I believe they're the first sisters to be in the UFC, which wouldn't be that hard, because obviously women's MMA in the UFC is still early in relative terms to what the UFC is and what it's become. But it was an interesting fight. I'd like to see her. I'd like to see some more of her. There's definitely a lot of promise there. She's a lot of great skills. Like she's clearly got good power. She's clearly got good skills. I'm interested to see now what happens with either of Shevchenko, who moves up, who moves down, because obviously they're not going to want to fight each other, unless they do. I wouldn't think so though. I mean, Valentina is obviously streets ahead of her sister right now, but there's no telling what could happen in the landscape. But it was overall, I mean, it was a really good night of fights. Like I say, my biggest grievance is really with Jordan Williams not even getting a look in, and I think he should feel a bit aggrieved by that. But like I say, it's how you catch Dana on the night. Is he in a good mood? Is he in a bad mood? You just don't know. It was a nice night of fights, and the series is good. It's rolling along. Like I say, just my bugbear really with it is kind of who gets contracts, who doesn't get contracts. Is kind of, does a 15-minute performance, like a dominant performance, is that not even taken into account? you know, if someone gets a vicious knockout, it's you know, just one of those things. It is what it is, but I mean, like I say, I do think they should scrap the Ultimate Fighter because I think it's stale. I think it's had its day. They don't need it anymore. They have a better platform now, I think, and it's just just one of those things. But a great night of fights. If you haven't seen the fights, go back and watch them because there's some really good performances. A lot to like, even from all three episodes. There's a lot to like from all of them. That's really it. I guess until next time, guys. I'll see you next time.